Welcome to our mock criminal law class. As you can see, we're not in a classroom. We are actually going by Zoom, and we'll still have the same kind of class that we would have in a criminal law course in law school. My name is Steve Friedland. I've been teaching at Elon Law School since we opened up, and as one of the initial original professors, I've seen us grow and change, and I've loved that we are all about engaged learning. Now, while we can't have complete engaged learning here, we're going to do our best to try to involve you in this initial class, which is titled, What's a Crime? And hopefully we'll all dig into this. And the first thing I'm going to do is share the screen and see if we can get some assistance for us here with some PowerPoint slides. So here we go with some PowerPoint, and we are going to talk about what is a crime. That's our initial question and really our only question for today. So we're going to break this up and start with what's the law, because criminal law is all about law. Crimes are created by law. And of course, growing up, we had our own law. I don't know about you, but my law was created by my parents. And they set lots of things. And of course, there was punishment if you violated the law. If you stayed out too late, if there was a curfew, if you didn't do chores, I can go on. And I'm sure you can think of some that you had your guidelines that weren't aspirational. They were hard rules. Of course, now, who sets criminal law? And the answer is that there are 4 different sources of law. Well, you may have looked at the screen already, but if you're not looking at the screen, where does law come from? And if you can, see if you can write it down. I'm going to give you a second or two to think about it. And if you're with your family, see if your family members know, where does law come from? Because that's really what law school is about. We study these sources of law, and then we analyze how law is formed, but also how is it applied in different situations. Well, the 4 sources of law there on your screen. One is the common law. That's judge-made law. That comes from England. Way back when, the English law was imported here along with a lot of other things. If you have heard or seen Hamilton, or you like the music, of course, that is in part about our separating from Britain, but we did use and take with us a lot of the British law and legal precedent. That's one source. Another source is statutes. What's a statute? It's a code. It is created by the legislature. And of course, we have different legislatures in our country. We have the federal legislature. They're called Congress. And it's a bicameral legislature. There's 2 different houses. We know that, House of Representatives and the Senate. And then there are state legislatures, and there are municipal equivalents such as city councils and the like, and county controls as well. So we really have 2 governments. We have federal government and state government, and there are a lot of state governments, but they make statutes or the equivalent. Could be municipal ordinances. And then of course we have constitutions. And then you may say, well, that sounds weird. How can you have more than one constitution? Well, see if you can tell if there's someone else with you, 2 constitutions, or write down, if you can, more than one constitution. Is that appropriate? Is that possible? And the answer is going to be yes. There are state constitutions as well as the federal constitution. But the state constitutions had better be consistent with the federal constitution. They can provide more protection, but they've got to be consistent. So believe it or not, we have more than one constitution, but our big one, the grandmother or granddaddy of all constitutions, is the U.S. Constitution. And last but not least, the big source of law are administrative regulations. Administrative regulations, what do I mean by that? If you think of Washington, D.C., and all the administrative bodies, from the EPA, the FAA, the FDA, all of these are administrative agencies, and they actually can fill in gaps in the law and are allowed to create law in a sense, even though they're under the directive, as long as there's an intelligible principle, given to them by Congress. So that's law and sources of law. That's our backdrop. Now it's time for criminal law. Who makes it? And the answer is the legislature. That's who makes it today. There are legislatures all over, and our legislators propose criminal laws, and they get enacted. And why do they do it? And the key to criminal law is to protect society. Not protect us individually, but society often as a whole, and it protects us from morally blameworthy behavior. So the way it works is we start with the legislature, where their powers, they're actually called police powers, not this, woo, 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 woo. I know we have the police cars coming by, but police powers really means powers over health, safety, welfare, or morals. That covers just about everything, right? Sex, drugs, rock and roll. Can the states regulate? Yes. And we're going to see the feds can too, but those are called police powers. And finally, why do we know they're criminal? Because they're often, they really are completely about retribution or deterrence. Those are the two main themes of criminal law. And actually at the borders, it's not clear what's criminal and what's civil. We talk about that in criminal law class. But at the end of a crime is often a punishment. Not always, but usually is a punishment. And it can be a fine, monetary, or it can even be, of course, we know incarceration, or in some rare instances, in a lot of states still, there is a death penalty. So that's criminal law and how it's made. And now, what's a crime? We're finally ready to answer it. So there I am, I'm driving along, it's nice, good day, and it's beautiful out, and all of a sudden someone cuts me off. I get really mad and I think, I'm gonna get that guy. And in my mind, I press this little button on my car, and boom, it incinerates the car in front of me that just cut me off. Did I commit a crime? Just from thinking that through, and then in my mind pushing that button, and then seeing that car in my mind go up in smoke? Is that a crime? Or there's Schmerd in my class sleeping again. And I hate it when anyone sleeps in my class. So I pick up the ball. Yep, nice little Spalding. I don't know if you can see it in the camera. I take it and I throw it at him, and it comes back. And it actually misses Schmerd. Schmerd wakes up. Oh, best nap ever, and doesn't even know I threw the ball. Is that a crime? And then third, I'm zooming with Schmerd just like this, and we're talking, and we're having fun, and we're having our nice little Zoom chat. And then by the end of it, he says to me, you want to rob a bank? And I say, sure. And we pick a bank out, and we then stop the Zoom, and he goes and checks the bank out, and then we forget about it, and we go about our daily business. Have we committed a crime? So I'm going to pause here for a second, and now either write out whether you think 1, 2, and 3 are crimes or not. And either write it out if you're alone, or if there are family members there, see what they think. See if driving and cutting someone off is a crime. Throwing a ball at someone who's sleeping, who doesn't even know you threw it at them, is a crime. And then 3, on a Zoom chat, 2 people say, sure, we'll rob a bank. And 1 person goes just to look at the bank, and then nothing else happens. Crime. So go ahead, if you would, and talk about it just for a minute or 2, or 3, or write it down. So see if you can get from 1 to 2, and then go to 3, 1 more minute. And then we're going to go over them. And usually in a class, I'm going to be asking people about this and asking them what they think. Okay, driving and cutting them off. Is that a crime? Well, earlier on I said to you, what's the key to criminal law? It's morally blameworthy behavior. So it's got to be conduct. So this doesn't involve conduct, even if you think it. So I would probably ask right now, how many people have had bad thoughts in the last couple of days? How many people have thought about doing things that are probably not acceptable in the last couple of months? And the answer is, we may have all thought of it, but we didn't act on it. The key to criminal law is behavior or acts. You have to have conduct. How come? Another reason is, how do we ever find out if someone is morally blameworthy in their conduct if they don't act? Just thinking about something means we'd all be in prison and there wouldn't be evidence. And one thing I want to emphasize in criminal law, it's an evidence-based area. We are going to let someone go free, even if we think they're guilty of a crime or not. And it has to be based on the evidence. My family has watched this documentary called Tiger King. And you may have too, and they have formed opinions about people in there. But does that mean that person they form opinions about, or are those people are guilty or innocent? No. To be guilty of a crime, you have to be proven guilty beyond and to the exclusion of a reasonable doubt based on the evidence presented. So driving and cutting off, not a crime. How about throwing a ball? Well, now we have an act. I threw something, and that schmurred, and I wanted to hit him, but I missed him. So the bottom line is it still a crime if you don't touch somebody? Hey, no harm, no foul. Schmurd wasn't concerned. He didn't care. It missed him. There it was, and it came back to me. I get the ball back. Do over, no problem. Well, the answer is that was a crime. Believe it or not, a crime, again, is behavior under an acceptable minimum for society. So we want to protect Schmurd, but we want to protect anyone else from having balls and other things thrown at them. If I made this a little easier, I would have said, I shot at Schmurd. Now you're going to say, yeah, shooting and missing, hey, that's still a crime. That's still going to be a crime. But this is too, even though I threw a ball, that's called an attempted battery. Battery is an unlawful, harmful, or offensive touching of another person. And here I am acting in a way that's unlawfully trying to harmfully or offensively touch him. This is going to be called attempted battery, which is really an assault. Assault is a crime where you don't touch somebody. You're either intentionally scaring them or attempting to batter them. Number two, it's a crime. Number three, I zoomed with Schmurd. Where's the act? Where is the act? And the answer is talking alone is an act. There are crimes of talking. Can you think of a crime of talking? Yeah. Solicitation is a crime of talking. Threats is a crime of talking. Treason can be a crime. That's one of the crimes in the Constitution. That's a crime, and it could be a crime of talking. It could be a crime of different kinds of acts too. Well, here, this one in number three is going to be called conspiracy. That's if we had two or more people who intended to commit a crime and intended to agree to commit the crime. And in the modern law, there has to be an act in furtherance towards the crime. And that's why I had Schmurd go to look at the bank. That's conspiracy, and we both can be put in jail, even though for criminal behavior, we didn't go further. Because conspiracy with two or more people generally is a bad thing. We want to keep people from even deciding in groups to commit crimes. So we got the first three down. Let's see what else we have here. So now Schmurd asked me for directions to and from the bank. I give him alternate routes, and he robs the bank and I don't. And let's say I didn't agree with him beginning. This is all that happened. This is a new one. It's not number three. For the first time, Schmurd comes up to me and says, give me directions to the bank. I give him directions. He robs the bank. Did I commit a crime? And it's not like we had talked about robbing the bank before. We're starting over. So what do you think? Write down, did I commit a crime or not? Or ask your family members who are nearby, or anyone who's nearby. And the answer here is the classic answer from law school? What's the classic answer? It depends. If I didn't know Schmurd was robbing the bank and he's just a friend who said, do you have directions? I did an act that helped him, but I'm not morally blameworthy. But if I knew he was going to rob the bank, I am called an aider and abettor. This is called accomplice liability. And we saw in the Boston bombing case where one of the bombers said to his friends, hey, can you go into my apartment and dump my knapsacks? It has stuff inside I don't want anyone to see. And they threw it out. Did they commit a crime? Yes, because they knew what he was involved in. But if you don't know what they're involved in, then it's not a crime. A lot of cases that come up in number 4 in criminal law involve someone driving a car from one place to another, and it has a secret compartment filled with drugs. Of course, they're stopped. They're called a mule, and they are guilty as an aider and abettor of distributing narcotics if they not only did the act, but they also have the mental state as well, the criminal mental state. So 4, it depends. It's a maybe. And that's the way we deal with law school mostly, a lot of maybes in school. Okay, number 5, lifeguard Schmurd. We have Schmurd again. Sees his enemy in a puddle on the way to work, steps over him, and proceeds on his way. The enemy is drowning in the puddle, and Schmurd just walks on by. Did Schmurd commit a crime? And he's a lifeguard normally. He's not lifeguarding there, but he's on his way to work as a lifeguard. And his enemy is in a puddle, not in the ocean or the pool, just as he's entering the area he's heading to work. He does nothing. Did Schmurd commit a crime? And the answer here is going to be, this one actually has one. The answer is no. We do not, in our society, generally require people to assist others. There's no duty to aid in civil world or in the criminal world. Only in certain instances is there a legal duty to act. So when Schmurd did not act to help the enemy, that's, in our society, we're not going to punish him. That is not a nice thing, but we don't call that a crime generally. But if Schmurd is on duty as a lifeguard and in front of him in the pool, someone's drowning, and then he goes, forget about it. No, he has a contractual duty to act. Or if it's Schmurd's spouse or child, Schmurd has a relationship duty that requires action. And sometimes a statute may require action. April 15th, normally, every year, you better do what? File income taxes. Even celebrities are not exempt, right? Wesley Snipes, you're supposed to file. If you don't, the inaction can be the basis for a crime. That's because the legislature has required that. So number 5, the answer is no crime. And number 6 gives us a different kind of example. Babysitter Schmurd sees one of the kids. He's babysitting, having problems staying above water in the pool. Schmurd's in the middle of a very important phone call. If Schmurd does nothing, can he be held liable for a crime? And the answer is maybe. Schmurd here has a duty to act because as a babysitter, there is generally an agreement, a contract, saying I will watch the kids. Even if Schmurd has a duty to act, Schmurd may not be required to jump in the pool, particularly if Schmurd can't swim. But Schmurd will be required to go throw something in the pool, call 911, yell to others for help, or do something like that. So, number 6, maybe a crime. Number 5, lifeguard Schmurd stepping over his enemies, not a crime. And number 4, another, call me maybe. It could be a crime, may not be. It depends on what Schmurd's mental state was at the time. So, here's an area which is a really hard one. It comes up every day, communities all over the country, and it's domestic violence. So here's my first question. Who files charges? Victims, police, or prosecutors? Please talk. Excuse me. And believe it or not, police and prosecutors are both in the executive branch. They carry out the law. The judicial branch, judges, they interpret the law. And legislatures, we already said, make the law. So in our three branches of government, we talked about the legislature making the law. Now we're talking about carrying it out. So it's really police and prosecutors. And actually, police investigate crime. They do not charge it. It's only prosecutors who can formally file charges. In some jurisdictions, the police may say, this is a breaking and entering, or this is a burglary. But it's up to the prosecutors to formally charge. Now, are victims protected? To some extent. But remember what I said in the very beginning. It's really about protecting society. So while victims have some rights, see Larry Nassar, where they had the victims talk to him directly. While that's becoming much more the norm, criminal law still remains focused on protecting society in general. It's not the victim who initiates charges generally, although they can file a complaint. But again, it's up to the prosecutors to charge. So, hypo, Gail calls 911 saying Gary is beating her up. And this kind of thing happens, again, all too often, every day in jurisdictions around the U.S. Police arrive and Gail is really bruised. She tells the police when they want to interview her, and Gary is there in the other room, she fell, and that she loves Gary. So initially she said, I'm being beaten up by Gary, and then police come, I fell, I love Gary, and that's it. Should the prosecutors charge Gary anyway? Go ahead and discuss or write down what you think. Just give you a couple of seconds. And here again is one of those maybe answers, because we want to protect society. And it looks like initially Gary was beating her up. And we want to protect society from Gary now and in the future. We would like to protect Gail now and in the future. But if Gail doesn't testify, it's going to make it a very difficult case. So the prosecutor is going to have to ask, without Gail's testimony, can I prove this case to a jury beyond a reasonable doubt? That's going to be the key. Can I prove it? And how do I prove it without the testimony? Now, we have the 911 call, and this is going to raise what's called confrontation clause issues. And that's another thing we'll learn in a criminal law course. So these kinds of issues come up. Should the prosecutor go forward? The initial real question is, can they go forward? And what should they do about it? But this happens all the time. Domestic violence is a very real and troubling issue. It's a public health problem in our country. Okay, last thing we're going to do, based on a true case. Two mountain climbers are roped together high up in the Andes Mountains. They're 20 some odd thousand feet. One falls over the side and is dangling. The only way for the other mountain climber to save himself is to cut the mountain climber who fell. It's the only way to save him. And here I'm going to make it, I'll put a little twist on it. Turns out you're one of the mountain climbers and you're climbing with the person who's closest in the world to you. Do you cut the rope? So I'm going to give you a couple of seconds. Would you cut the rope? Or you could talk about it with people around you, because this is exactly what occurred with two mountain climbers some years back. Okay, well, here are the answers. And again, this is another one. It's really, in a way, a situation that's going to be very personal. And here's how people answer it. Some people will say, yes, I'll cut the rope based on utility. Better to have one person survive than no one. So for me, in a way, it would be easier now, because if I'm up there with my wife and I'm dangling, that's the easy one. But if she's dangling, I still may cut, because someone should be here for my kids, our kids. And same thing, if I'm dangling, I'm definitely telling her to cut. But on the other hand, would you really want to survive without the other person? So what happened in the actual case? They cut the rope. The person fell 500 feet, crashed, broke both legs and his pelvis, but crawled down the mountain and survived, even after falling that far. And the two mountain climbers met up again at the bottom. I would have loved to have been there and heard that discussion. I think that was the last time they ever talked. And they made it into a movie. And kind of a very interesting situation. But this, in a way, is what happens with criminal law. It's the moral geography underlying it. And actually, there is a legitimate justification for cutting in terms of self-defense. But morally, can you really cut? I know for me, even though I just said I have a justification for cutting, I'm not so sure I could. It would be easy for me if I'm dangling. I would want my wife to survive. But these are tough questions, and there's no answer, which is really what law school engages us in and why it is so interesting. It deals with the tough questions, really what they call the wicked questions, and ones that don't really have clear answers. But that's why I think criminal law is an important area. I think it's a system that needs improvement in a lot of different ways, and we need good people in it. If we don't have good people who are criminal lawyers, and I think we need good criminal defenders as well as good prosecutors, because good prosecutors don't win all the time. They are looking at justice, not winning. And you need good defenders because some people are innocent and some people are mischarged and some people shouldn't be in the system at all. They should be farmed out, which is what we're doing now, to specialized subcomponents like mental health court, drug court, and other courts. Juvenile court was the first one in 1899, where we started to say people need treatment and not punishment. So there's your quick class. We shared the screen. I'm going to stop the share right now. And I think we are going to be done with the class. And wherever you go to law school, I hope and wish you a great career ahead. And I hope to see you at Elon in the near future. Have a great day.